Hello YouTube, it's time again for another episode of Chop Talk brought to you by DFSArmy.com, your one-stop shop for all things DFS related. I'm your buddy Choppadong, and I'm a coach and contributor inside DFS Army. You know the drill. Run down to the comments section, click the link, become a VIP, use the coupon code CHOP, 10% off if you do that. But what we're going to do today is a little bit of a different twist because I'm a pretty transparent guy. My main goal, and really everybody's main goal inside DFS Army, is to make you a better player by any means possible. And I share some other content on occasion, and I do some other things that really just, I'm 95% to 99% DFS Army tools. But occasionally I will use things that pop super early in the week to get a perspective, get my research pointed in the right direction to help you guys get your research pointed in the right direction. So one of the areas that I look is, Farnsworth's first look article on roto grinders. I have asked Derek multiple times, hey, do you mind if I share this or not? Because I don't want anybody thinking that I don't go asking for permission to take these things and move through them. And of course, he's granted me permission every time I've ever asked. And I thank him for that. So, a little bit of free pub for Derek. But this article is pretty slick. If you give Roto Grinders your email address, it's free. It doesn't cost you anything. That's great. I try to keep people that ultimately my goal is to teach you how to become a better DFS player and make you realize that we really know what we're talking about inside DFSArmy.com, and you need to become a VIP there because you need to gain access to all of this knowledge that we have as a collective unit to teach you where to go, where to look. Is our tool the best? Is our tool, is it in, there are places that are still really good outside of there. And so I'll be honest, I'll tell you where they are. I don't care. I think that loyalty and that honesty is actually what's going to make you a more valued member, or at least trust what I have to say when I tell you that the Army is the best place. Because it's not just a sales pitch, it's legitimately how I feel, okay? What we're going to do today is we'll go through a little bit of pointing in the right direction with this first look article while we're waiting for the numbers to pile into our research station that is a little bit more sophisticated than this particular article and dives into a little bit deeper stats. So we have to wait a little bit for some of the numbers to kind of normalize and then get released, and then we can upload our own tools. But while we're waiting, there are some things that we can do. Like we can look through the Vegas lines. You see that in Wishbone. I've got my own way of doing this. So, it's fine. Wherever you get that information is great. Implied team totals, if you don't know how to calculate those, you're going to want to know because they will tell you what offenses to focus on. Like this week, Patriots, Steelers, Chargers, Saints, Rams, top 5 offenses on the board. That's what you're going to, now you can consider all the way down to, 23, 24, whatever, but why would you focus on the Eagles or the Jaguars? Maybe the Jaguars because they're at KC, but why would you focus on some of those guys as your core to build around when Vegas is telling you these are the teams that are going to score the points? And if the teams are going to score the points, your odds are better if you've got a primary producer in that offense. So this is where we should be spending most of our time focused on who's going to get the love in these offenses. Down here, we may add these in as supplementary pieces to our core, if that makes sense. That's what we're trying to figure out. Where, there may be a lot of value down here. There may be bad matchups up here. There may be all sorts of things. But right now, at first glance, Vegas is telling us very simply, focus up here and then consider these guys a little bit down the road, okay? Well, the other thing that we can do for defenses is we can scroll all the way down here to the bottom and we can look at the opponents of this crap. When I look down here and see the Seahawks, the Cowboys, Titans, we're all scheduled to score under 22 points. This is the shit pile. These are the guys that can barely get off the bus without tripping over their own shoes. And they're running up against very tough matchups, tough defenses that are going to suppress their scores. Why do I want them? I'm not going to sit here and say, "Oh my God, the Vikings are just going to go ballistic." Could they? Sure. But Vegas is already telling me they're not going to. What do I think that the Vikings can outscore all 10 of these teams this week? Probably not. So my GPP winners are probably going to come out of some of these lineups, and maybe the Vikings can supplement it some, but I don't think that core is going to happen, at least not very often. And so I'm going to try not to focus there, except for maybe some kind of large field GPP contrarian type lineup where I am trying to catch lightning in a bottle and hope that the scenario comes through. I'm instead looking at these offenses down here and thinking about the opposing defenses. Look, Houston, good spot. LA Rams, good spot. Buffalo, wow, interesting, huh? You'd actually consider taking the Buffalo defense? Well, Maybe you will. I mean, Mariota and Gabbert can be turnover prone. It's telling you that by low implied totals, and then we'll look for high Vegas favorites when I scroll up here. If I'm looking for big underdogs, New England Colts. Are the Colts on that list down there implied to score very, very low points? Because New England has a big advantage over them. New England Colts, 21 points. So if I've got the big point spread and a low implied total for the Colts, then it tells me the New England defense is in a pretty good spot because the Colts should be throwing it late. Now, here's what you may have to consider. Is Andrew Luck really throwing it downfield? I mean, not really. Is he really all that turnover prone? Maybe not yet. I'm going to consider some of these because when I see, down here, I see the Dallas Cowboys facing Houston. Houston's a good defense. They've got a lot of chops. But when I look at the Cowboys, they're going to use a lot of ball control with Zeke, and they're going to use a good bit of Dak throwing the ball, who has historically not been an interception happy quarterback. So that actually may look like a good indicator on the surface, but it suppresses Houston's ability to score a top-notch score on the week. Could they? Yes. Again, let's talk about how often, if you want to run a simulator, when I played poker, I would run simulated hand scenarios millions of times because I wanted all of the variants to come out and I wanted it to tell me exactly what should happen. Am I only a quarter profitable on a dollar bet, or am I a dollar profitable on a dollar bet? The same thing happens here. If we ran this slate 100 times, 1,000 times, 1,000,000 times, all of your outliers would happen. But the general meat of the bell curve, remember 20, 60, 20, 20% low, 60% the majority of the time, 20% high on the outlier side. 60% of the time, we're going to run in this channel between here and here, wherever there and there is. And what we're looking for is that Houston defense is probably going to be a little bit lower than the matchup might indicate just by the nature of the way the Cowboys run their team. Titans, Vikings, Philly in play, but, Buffalo in play, Carolina in play. Eli can be turnover happy. So, Carolina defense at home, big spread. What's the spread on that one? When I look up here for the Carolina Panthers, 6.5, pretty decent spread and a pretty low total down here under a 20. So Carolina might be one of the leaders in the clubhouse already. San Francisco, people will probably be going to them. Tennessee, people will definitely be going to them. Those are some defenses to be thinking about. So we've already got some offenses to focus on. We've already got some defenses to focus on. And then we'll start refining our approach as news comes out, as practices come out, as deeper numbers get released in the tools around the industry that we're looking for. Notably, shameless plug, dfsarmy.com. Like and subscribe to the channel, right? DVOA matchups. If we look at DVP, DVOA is a similar concept. Of course, the numbers are calculated differently. DVOA is a little bit more opponent independent, meaning it's more play-by-play dependent. It's not exactly depending on, whatever your opponents did 3 weeks ago doesn't necessarily put as much weight into DVOA as it does in DVP. But still good measures at finding out who's in good matchups. So let's do this. Let's look against the run. This is really easy. Really easy. And we scrolled, I showed this to my VIPs this morning. Who's bad against the run? Well, Atlanta, Washington, Kansas City, Green Bay, Oakland, Detroit, all the way down to say about here to where we're kind of in the top third of the matchups, top quarter of the matchups. Easy to tell. These are the bad teams against the run. Some of them are also bad against the pass. You know what I mean? So let's go down here and let's look for somebody who's at home, somebody who's favored, and let's look at these offenses and see if we can't find a bell cow running back in there. Steelers, James Conner, hadn't been as good lately, but factors into the passing game, gets some red zone work if they're not using him as a decoy. The problem is Big Ben is in a high volume throwing offense right now with Antonio Brown and Juju Schuster. And it just so happens that Atlanta's bad against the pass as well. So we don't really know what their game plan is necessarily going to be. But they are at home, they are favored, and they are scheduled to score over 25 points. So that's a pretty good number. We might want to consider James Conner. Kamara, well, Ingram comes back. The Saints are in a great, great spot. But Ingram comes back. Don't really know how that's going to pan out. Doesn't look like they're very good against the pass, so Drew Brees might be in some trouble. However, the running game might be fine. If Ingram comes back, I don't know exactly where that's going to play into with both of them. So that one's got question marks. They're GPP type picks now. as opposed to just cash locks. Jaguars. Kansas City obviously bad against everything. So Jaguars have Fournette, but he's hurt, right? They have Yeldon, right? But are they really going to be using? They're not favored. That's a bad scenario for running backs. They're only implied to score 24 as opposed to 28 or 29, right? They're on the road. That's not good either. So these are not necessarily good indicators for the running back in this particular spot. But I will say this, looking at the other side of the offense, if you've got Blake Bortles, now if Fournette's in, they don't throw as much. If Fournette's not in, then Blake Bortles does throw more, and Kansas City's bad against the pass. So you might consider some Bortles. He's not at home. He's not favored. He's not going to be a great pick, but he might land on your radar for GPPs or something like that. Lions, no, not favored. Sorry, no featured running back there. Chargers, favored, home. It's not at Oakland. It's in LA. High implied total, big favorite. Boom, lock up Melvin Gordon. Bad against everything, but Melvin Gordon factors into the passing game. So if they decide to take a pass approach, Melvin Gordon's going to be involved. He's the Kamara right now, with Kamara splitting with Ingram possibly. Now Melvin Gordon's probably your Kamara. Not as good, maybe, but he's damn good on his own. This is your only real lock in the great matchups. Packers, where's the true running back in the Packers? The bell cow. There isn't one. The Seahawks, underdogs. Raiders, underdogs. Bills, underdogs. Panthers, Christian McCaffrey. Okay, so they're not so great. New York Giants, not so great against the run, but we look at Christian McCaffrey. What is he a true bell cow? No. Why? Doesn't get the goal line work that he should get because Cam does that himself. So Christian McCaffrey works between the 20s really well. He can break big long runs, and he's in a very, very good spot in a game that they should be focused on the running, but Christian McCaffrey's more of a pass catching back. I know he got a lot of carries recently. That's fine. But when it comes down to the goal line on the short fields, Cam Newton is vulturing touchdowns off these guys. Now, what does that mean for Cam? Well, not so great against the pass either, are they? The Giants are not that great in either spot. Therefore, maybe we've got ourselves a situation where Cam's doing a lot of throwing and a lot of running on his own, and we know he's good for a touchdown or two when they get on a short field. He'll probably punch one in. That's a good spot for Cam. Maybe not so much Christian McCaffrey. Now, Christian McCaffrey on DraftKings is completely different than Christian McCaffrey on Fanduel. Fanduel, we are putting a lot more weight on touchdown equity. On DraftKings, we're putting a lot more weight on receptions. Okay, so that's a different animal. Those two sites are apples and oranges when it comes to Christian McCaffrey. Doesn't mean he's a bad play on Fanduel, but it does mean he's typically a better play. He's a lot stronger play over on DraftKings. I would still be looking for Cam Newton in this one. Falcons, no. Rams, that's a Gurley spot, right? Oh, they're on the road, though. Not like Seattle's great against the run. And we know Todd Gurley factors into the pass game a little bit. Good sign is Seattle's not as they're not as weak against the pass. They're strong against the pass, which means we may lean a little bit more on the run and Gurley, right? But they're on the road, so he's not going to check every single box for me. Doesn't mean I won't consider him. It depends on what the rest of the slate offers. And we'll go through those later in the week as we go. But right now, Melvin Gordon's going to be my favorite player on the slate. Cam Newton might be one of my favorite players on the slate. Big Ben might be one of my favorite players on the slate. See how I came to those conclusions just by looking at the run DVOA? Click over to the pass DVOA. Let's go through the same thing. And then we'll call this video good. Redskins. Heavy passing situation. But again, for quarterbacks, we want home and favored. For wide receivers, we don't care quite as much. So is Jamison Crowder somebody you're really going to fight for? No. But how about, say, running back against pass attempts? How about a Chris Thompson? Chris Thompson might hit the radar today, or this week, even on FanDuel. If this was the type of scenario for a Christian McCaffrey, we would like him, but he's a lot higher priced than Chris Thompson is. Chris Thompson, you can afford to make the mistake with him and him not have such a great game, and you don't get completely dusted because if you spend up in other spots and hit your other spots, you've done okay. So he might be like a flex back or something like that this week. Chargers, there's Kamara again because they're not good against, there's Kamara, there's Gordon again because they're not good against the run or the pass. It's a Phillip Rivers type of game because as we saw Thursday night, everybody was so worried about Jared Goff, it's elite defense, whatever. He still went crazy. We saw Phillip Rivers still had a good game. They were favored. It was Phillip Rivers was a blowout concern in LA last week, but or whoever they were playing, I can't even remember, San Francisco or something, was a blowout concern. But Phillip Rivers still got his points because this is 4 implied touchdowns. If Gordon gets 2 of them, maybe one of them's via the pass and the other 2 or 3 came from, from throwing the ball, right? That's how you get those points. Jaguars, that's another thing you can look into is average passing touchdowns per game. And that will tell you how much this situation, it leans towards a Phillip Rivers type. It's not a bad spot for him. Jaguars, that's Bortles and garbage time, perhaps. Cardinals, nope, not trusting anybody there, are we? Dak, not trusting him, are we? This is passing focus. Derek Carr, no, not as an underdog and not on the road. Sorry, junk. I know that San Diego or LA is not that great against the pass, but it's Derek Carr. What has he shown us so far this year? Any consistency? Anyone can spike a week, and he's in maybe a spike spot, but as an underdog and as a road team, they're not in the best position. There are better choices out there for us this week. So we'll focus on the best of the best. We'll save GPP for the rest. Okay? Steelers, there it is again, Big Ben and the receivers. I look over here specifically at the receivers. Looks like they're 1 and 2. Now, here's what I would tell you. I saw something earlier that, Atlanta's DVOA is, 20 whatever, 5th against the pass, but they're 8th in yards per attempt. So they're getting torn up by passing, but it appears that when they're not allowing a lot of yards per pass attempt, they're getting killed underneath. They're getting killed by a bunch of shorter yardage stuff. So now I'm going to go to Pittsburgh, and I'm going to look at which Pittsburgh receiver, Brown or Schuster, is getting the shorter work. What do I do? Where do I find that? That's VIP only information. I'll give that to my VIPs. But it's very obvious which one you should play this week already. Panthers, -6.5. That's the wide receivers. Is this a Funchess week? With no Greg Olsen? Could be a Funchess week. But again, there's others with more consistent work and more consistent quarterbacks throwing at them and stuff that I might consider instead. I'm just looking at a glance, trying to pick these out. Colts, anybody on the Colts I want to take? Probably not. T.Y. Hilton, GPP play always, but probably nobody else. Titans, maybe Ebron. Nope, look at the Colts over here. Bad matchup. New England's been defending tight ends well. So that's going to devalue Ebron. Even though he may be who we still use, we may just lower our expectations on him because there's no way. Or gamble and be like, well, Ebron's in a bad matchup. Let's take a Tyler Eifert instead, because if we're going to roll the dice, you might as well roll the dice with somebody who's in a good matchup as opposed to somebody who's in a bad matchup. Whatever you want to do. We'll talk about that as the week goes on. Tennessee Titans receivers. Corey Davis, anyone? Perhaps. Not terrible. Bad against the pass. Overall, but nothing too, except for the slot guy or the third guy, wherever that might be in Tennessee. Lions passing, there's a couple of them, 1 and 2. That's Galladay, Tate, maybe Marvin Jones, against Green Bay, right? At home, not favored, but implied to score points. But we don't care about that for the receivers. We would care about that for Stafford. That's going to put Stafford in an okay spot, but not a great cash safe type of spot. Giants, Jets, 49ers, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Looking down these roads, this is just how you break this stuff down. You want to do the tight ends, go down, look at who are the bad matchups in tight end. Cowboys, do they have a good tight end? Maybe one is emerging, but we'll have to wait and see. Jaguars, do they have a tight end? Not really. Cardinals, not really. Jets, not really. 49ers, Kittle. Okay, so that's the first one we come across is George Kittle. Getting targets, getting work. Kittle's at home. Kittle's favorites. Great Kittle week. Going to be a great Kittle week. Jimmy Graham. On the road, not so great, but favored and against a weak defender against the tight end. So Jimmy Graham probably in play. Kittle's in the better spot. Do you see why? Checks more boxes. Favored, home, bad matchup. And, we know that he gets used. We know that he gets 5, 6, 7 targets a game. Got a lot more than that with Beathard. So this is probably your chalk tight end this week. Giants, no. Eagles, Ertz. Home and favored against Minnesota, who's not great against the tight end, but you're going to have to pay up to get Ertz. We're going to have to compare Ertz and Kittle. But we got 2. Tight ends, Falcons, that's a hooper, not favored, not home, sorry. Texans, no. Lions, Patriots, there's Gronk. Big favorite at home against Indianapolis. Not great against the tight end. Gronk's in play. There's 3, but Gronk's going to be more of a GPP play until we see his targets come back up. Panthers, if Greg Olsen was here, it'd be a pretty good spot for him. So you see how we're doing this. Just go through these positions. Click on the pass. Click on the run. Click on the running backs. Click on the wide receivers. Start thinking about who on these teams are the better tight ends. Who on these teams are the better quarterbacks. Who on these teams are the better running backs? And do they get the work? Do they get the traffic? Do they get the goal line work, the red zone work, the third down work, all that stuff? And if they're in a good spot, they're home, they're favored, they're implied to score a high amount of points, you play them. You put them on your short list. We'll round out with all of these other guys like we talked about before as the week goes on and we analyze more thoroughly. But as a first glance, bang, your core should be coming out of these top offenses. Your defense should come out of these bottom defenses or these bottom, attacking these bottom offenses with these defenses. And then you should be looking position by position by position to find it in your mind. How is this guy looking? How is that guy looking? I know that this guy gets all of the work. What kind of matchups he in? Is he home? Is he favored? Is he what? I can't beat that into your head enough. But if you become a VIP, we'll talk about it more. Ask questions. Get in there and interact. That's the only way you're going to get better. It is more than worth the price to unlock all of the articles and content, all of the tools, all of the coaching, and you get to unlock me. I'm your guy. I'm not the guy. I'm never going to tell you I'm the best damn DFS player in the world. What I'm going to tell you is right now, my for the season, my head-to-head record's 98-25, so I'm just doing something right? I can help you get better. I can teach you the fundamentals. Invest in your own game. Invest in your own education as a player. Stop redepositing today. Click like, click subscribe, go to dfsarmy.com in the comments section and use the coupon code CHOP, C-H-O-P, and get your butt in here. All right, we'll be back later today or early tomorrow with Wishbone. We'll probably put another video out breaking down a couple of these positions, maybe finding some sneaky plays. But the majority of the content and conversation and the coaching is reserved for the VIPs. You've just got to be one if you want the total package. It's that simple. Get in here, guys. I'd love to talk to you. We'll see you. Week 5's cranking up, and we'll be busy all week long inside DFSArmy.com. Come take a look at us, guys. Love to have you.